Hello, I want to tell you about a prayer practice that is called praying the daily office, or praying the daily hours, or praying the divine hours. It goes by a lot of different names. This is a really ancient practice. It goes back thousands of years. As people were learning to connect with God and connecting with the built-in rhythms of daily life, and the rotation of the earth, even before they knew there was a rotation of the earth. And through the years, it's taken on different forms. And in the scripture, we read about things like it was the third watch of the day. And that just refers to a certain point in the day where the biblical times people, they had divided up the day in blocks of 3. So every 3 hours was a watch, a certain watch of the day. In our Christian tradition, the monastic movement, the monks and the nuns, they built their days around the daily office, these certain times of prayer throughout the day. And so the rhythm of monastic life was built upon certain types of prayer at certain times of the day. In our more modern incarnations of this, we often talk about 4 times of prayer through the day: morning prayer, midday prayer, evening prayer, and night prayer. And there are Latin fancy names that go with that, but I just wanted to tell you that there are basically 4 times a day that constitute the praying the daily office. I have some books that I'm going to share with you in just a minute, and there are a couple of smartphone apps that you can get to help with this as well. But it's really very simple. All you really need is to pay attention to the time of day and to build into your day a stopping point. Even once during the day. Once is a really good time a really good way to start this practice. You could just make sure that in the morning, at some point in your morning rhythm, your morning ritual, you stop and just spend a little bit of time with God. And you can do that in many different ways. You might set an alarm for noon, and that would remind you to stop in the middle of what you're doing, and just spend a moment reflecting, giving God thanks for the day, for the food you might be about to eat, looking ahead to the rest of the day. It's really as simple as stopping and pausing for a moment and just reconnecting with God, knowing too that as you do this, other people around the world are doing the same thing as you. When there are books and apps and things like that are published, so for example, the Book of Common Prayer has the daily office in it. I also have a couple of other books. They're going to be backwards on your screen. This is called Common Prayer, a Liturgy for Ordinary Radicals. You don't have to be that radical to read this book, but I've also got one called The Divine Hours, and another one, this is called The Liturgy of the Hours, and this is a pretty old book that was handed down to me from someone else. But I want to show you just sort of how this works. So there are rhythms within the rhythms, and if you wanted to get kind of more in depth and fancier with this, you can see that in this book, I don't know if you can see or not. I'm going to show you this. It's backwards, I know. This particular book has a morning prayer that's unique for every day of the year. And then there's a midday prayer that's the same for every day of the year. And then there's an evening prayer that is different every day of the week. But every Sunday it's the same. Every Monday it's the same. And so on. And then there are some occasional prayers and other things to do in the evening. This one has kind of a similar rhythm, and it has, there's sort of an evening prayer that's the same for this month. It has these different rhythms built within the rhythms, and it's a really beautiful way to pray. None of this is meant to take a lot of time. It's not an hour of prayer at all these stopping points, and it especially brief during midday and at night before you go to bed, with maybe a little bit more in depth in the morning and possibly in the evening as well. So again, you can do all 4 of these offices. You can get a book, you can find an app, but you can also just set an alarm and remind yourself to stop and pray at these different points in the day, and know that not only connects you with God, It creates you with our created rhythm, and it connects you with other people who are following a similar pattern and stopping and pausing and connecting with God and one another at these certain points in the day. So I commend praying the hours to you.